Pleasure to have Mike Champion, who is the CEO of Tahaluf, which is organising Leap 2025. In fact, has been organising it since its debut back in 2022, right?
Correct. Yeah, and thanks for having me on again. And you're great supporters of ours, and so I'm very happy to have a chat with you.
So, what are the key highlights of this year's event? I mean, it seems like it just gets better and better as each year goes by.
Really, thank you, and I'm glad you think that. And I think really the highlights depend on who you are. You know, if you're somebody who cares about technology in sports, then your key highlight's going to be the sports tech stage that we've got, which has amazing brands speaking on that, from Chelsea to Spurs to La Liga, Formula E. You've got Patrice Evra, who's moderating. We have legendary footballers like Alessandro Pirlo, Francesco Totti, Iker Casillas, people like this, who are at the event. But if a highlight for you is going to be the opportunity to pitch and potentially get millions of dollars invested in your business, or if you're a larger entity, get billions of dollars invested in your business, it's going to be meeting our 1,600 investors that we have. And they've got well north of $5 trillion of assets under management in terms of the companies that they're working with. And we have people of C-level, sort of ranking and decision-making authority coming from some of the biggest private equity, venture capitalists, sovereign wealth funds, LPs all around the world, including Sequoia, Andreessen Horowitz, including UBS, and you name it. I can go on. So really depends on what you're here to look for. Some people, by the way, will count one of the biggest highlights as how we've managed to fix the traffic issues. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I mean, there's now practically a 10-lane highway that's going in here, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah, we had such a brilliant show last year, but people told us, they said, we can't wait in the traffic like we did last time. Something has to be done about it. So we've got great partners here at Tahaluf. We managed to venue, which is operated by Seller. You'll know Seller. They do Riyadh. They do amazing things with Riyadh season, and also they're the sponsors of Newcastle United. The football shirt. So we did some. We did a lot of work with them, and we've come with a great agreement with them, which has ensured that we've got a larger highway, as you say. We've got extra roads being built. The one-way system's been completely changed. We've built 5,000 extra car parking spaces. We tested it on 2 shows, and now we don't have that issue anymore. So the customer satisfaction is going to be higher. And that's a really important measurement. It's not always about what can you do to improve, speaker faculty, to get an interesting speaker in. It's also about, customer experience and actually, having a good time and not fearing you're going to be waiting in a queue. So we're really pleased to have got that right this time as well.
Well, I think that's an interesting part about hosting events in this part of the world, is that there's something that happens, there's a learning, and then a year later it's fixed.
Yeah. That's the wonderful thing about working in Saudi Arabia, because I think the great analogy is if you were to take you took Terminal 5 at Heathrow, that took 16 years from the planning process to build, because about 10 years of that was planning, and 6 years of that was built. But if you look at the airports or the major infrastructure that's happening over here in Saudi Arabia, they get it done. Okay, they don't have time to wait 16 years, and nobody wants to wait 16 years, by the way. Not even people in England want to wait 16 years for Terminal 5 to be built at Heathrow. So they want things to be done today, tomorrow, as soon as possible. They've got the capital that they can deploy to make it happen. They've got people, they've got talent, and so that's very much like the events that they're doing as well. They don't want to wait 30, 40 years for Leap to get this size, like it does in other territories. They want to make sure that it happens in 2 or 3 or 4 years, and so they deploy the capital, but they also deploy the influence that the government has to try and get it accelerated as quickly as possible too. So that's part of the secret sauce.
So let's just run into some of the key numbers that you're looking at this year in terms of attendance expectations, the number of exhibitors, etc. How's it shaping up so far? I know that we're only in day 2.
Brilliantly, exactly as our expectations were. Last year we became the world's most attended tech event, and this year, actually, we're not looking at always adding on an extra 10, 20, 30,000 attendants, because frankly, that's just too many people at some point. What we're looking at doing is getting strength in depth. We want people with, relevance, influence, something to share, something with, inspirational story, somebody who's looking to deploy capital, somebody who's invented something and needs it to be adopted by someone early. That's what we mean by relevance. Everybody's relevant, but what we mean by super relevance in terms of this event. And so we have spent a lot of time building out the right personas of what we need, of who we want to attend, getting specialist media partners, specialist segmented, targeted media and marketing, social media marketing, to try and target the right people, and also to create stages and to create content which speaks to those people as well. And we've succeeded in that. And the way that we measure that is by looking at things like meaningful meetings that have been set up and created through the app, through the engagements in the app, through the conversions from registration to attendance. There's lots of measurements, but all of these are significantly up. Through measuring the job titles that people have. And you sort of measure those, and you're able to see that year on year, you're up 20% here, 30% here, whatever. We're going to be double digits up on all of those important factors. The amount of dry powder people have to deploy. Okay, we're going to be up on at least double figures on that. So by the end of the show, we should be able to reveal some of those numbers because we've only had 1.5 days so far. Okay, so we don't know how the next 2 days are going to go. I would love to give you the exclusive on it, but I don't have that information to hand yet. But what I can say is it's tracking really nicely.
Yeah, it definitely. I think your phrase there is, strength in value and in the offering that's been strengthened here. You can definitely feel that the moment that you're in here. And I'm curious to know, so in terms of the top keys that you've managed to attract, I mean, maybe 2 or 3 highlights for anybody who's maybe thinking about pulling in here in the next few days.
It really depends who you are. We've got well over 1,000 speakers, and trust me, we don't invite anybody to come along and speak unless they are, pertinent, interesting. They've got a good story to tell. I always love seeing Abdullah Al-Swaha, His Excellency, the Minister. I love seeing his presentations, partially because he's such a good orator and he's got brilliant stage presence, but because he always brings into it a meaningful story, a meaningful outcome on stage. We hear the announcements. We find out the billions of dollars that are being invested or are being announced in Saudi Arabia when he speaks. So I like to hear that. This year, I'm looking forward to meeting the ocean cleanup team. I think that's going to be nice. They're doing business with purpose, and when you're doing a business with purpose, like cleaning the world's oceans and the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and all of the detritus that pollutes the environment, that's a activity that everyone can get behind and support. Doesn't matter where you sit on the political spectrum. Nobody wants to see sea life and crap seas and things like that, right? So that's a business with purpose. And I think probably, there are 3 reasons why people attend events, all right? Especially business events. Fear, greed, and to shake the hand of greatness. Now I say this slightly tongue-in-cheek, but this was imparted to me by a great innovator of events and an owner of events businesses, and made himself hundreds of millions of dollars. So he knew something. Some people attend events out of fear. Fear that if they don't attend the event, they won't get the relevant information, they won't get the relevant education, and as a result, that could badly impact their personal career or it could badly impact their business. Imagine going back to the years of the internet. It's just been released. Nobody knows what it's about. You go out of fear because you wonder, am I still going to be the biggest company operating in logistics if I don't work with the internet well.
It's fear of missing out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then what if you're, greed? Some people go out of, the sensation they want to come here because they want to enhance their career, or they want to come here because they want to make money.
Yeah.
Now, it's a cheap way to describe, legitimate business opportunity, but it's a pithy way to do it. And the final one is shake the hand of greatness, and that's what I want to do. I want to meet with Alessandro Pirlo, Francesco Totti, and Iker Casillas, the great legendary footballers that are here. I'm a big football fan. I'm a Nottingham Forest fan, and although these guys never played for Nottingham Forest, I can't wait to meet them. So shake the hand of greatness is the third one.
So I think that's some fascinating insight that you've given us there. How much of that shapes what you're doing at Tahaluf right now? And maybe you can tell us more about how the company is doing Tahaluf. It's an interesting partnership that you've struck up here in the kingdom.
Hey, thanks for asking. I think I think you need to look at the products that a company has to understand how well it's doing, rather than just looking at the revenue and the profit. Now, it's important, of course, to see how healthy it is, but the products are super important as well. The products, or the quality of the service it provides, because sometimes it's surprising, isn't it? You look at a company, then you look at its products, you think, how is that viable? Like, does anybody actually want to? Do people still buy that stuff? That kind of thing. We feel we've got a few brands that are internationally renowned now at Tahaluf. We've got the tech sector. I think you can meet people, it's fair to say, from around the world that work in tech. If they work in tech, they will have heard of Leap. If they work in the events trade, they probably would have heard of Leap. And the same goes for Cityscape Global. That event as well is now world renowned in the property sector, in the real estate sector, because of the massive deals that happen there. And rather than just homegrown events or massively, rapidly grown events, there's also massive names that we're bringing into the kingdom. Money 2020, biggest name in fintech. It's chosen Saudi Arabia as its home, and we are the licensors of that. And 24 fintech that we launched last year will become Money 2020. So that's a brilliant win for the kingdom and shows great faith in both Tahaluf and also the kingdom. CPHI, the world's biggest pharma event, coming to Saudi. We launched it in December, the biggest pharma debut event in history in its first year, and we're going to expand that even further. And there's a lot more. Super Returns, the big investor event, we launched that only a couple of weeks ago in Saudi Arabia. So, what's happening? We're getting really well-known brands, and we're creating well-known brands. And some of these brands would normally take 20 odd years or 30 odd years to develop into, the strength. We're doing it in a really quick way. From a financial health perspective, really well. Last year, we quadrupled our operating profit, and not from too much of a low base layer either. Okay, so we quadrupled our operating profit from low double figures to mid double figures. Okay, dollars, right, millions, and then in the revenue side we doubled that, 100% growth on the revenue side. So it shows a healthy, progressive side to the business. We have emerged now from a company that is a fast-growing, healthy startup to one that is entering maturity. And that maturity means more employment, more staff, bigger size business, but also having, great financial reporting, brilliant financial team behind it, CFO that has worked for major international businesses now. We're getting to the point where we're a business that is producing predictable, good, solid, double-digit revenue and profit growth every year, and also a healthier improvement to our operating profit margin. So I think you're going to see some interesting things from Tahaluf over the next couple of years in that regard, and more products launched, and continuous further healthy growth.
And just as a last question, you've obviously gone from a startup to a scale-up at this point, and how, just in terms of the local government officials here in Saudi Arabia, they've been a big partner of yours. What is their view of all of this? Because I think a few years ago, none of this was happening here. Now suddenly it's becoming a thing, and I'm sure there's many it's created a whole supply chain around it as well, probably.
You're right, it has. Tahaluf has been a major multiplier or accelerator of the events industry, because frankly, if you spend a lot of money in the events trade, you're going to get more companies entering the events trade, to work with us, and we spend, more than $100 million a year on building our events, marketing our events, and branding them, and that's just Tahaluf that deploys that. Most of the stands that you see around here, they're not built by Tahaluf. They're built by hundreds of other companies that have formed, many of them, over in the last couple of years, or have moved their business to Saudi or opened an office in Saudi, looking at the work that Tahaluf and some of the other entities are doing in the region. So we're having a big knock-on effect to other industries as well. But do you know what it is? What's really changed for us is our capacity to be able to deliver world-class shows. Because when we started this in the first year, the supply chain was insufficient. Okay, yeah, there were some great people operating in it, but there weren't enough of them.
Yeah.
Or they weren't big enough to be able to do what we were doing, or they were stretched between too many projects, or we couldn't get the materials we wanted to do this stage, so we had to do that stage instead. Now that's totally changed. Now there is a really professional supply chain involved in this, and the reason why it's involved is because of these large-scale events that Tahaluf is doing, and we're seeing Salah and the General Entertainment Authority building as well, and other companies. So yeah, you're right, and this market, as soon as more capacity comes on board for even more venues, we'll just fill it, because Saudi loves events, and events work really well in Saudi Arabia.
Mike Champion, thank you so much for chatting with us again.
Good to see you, man. Thanks a lot.